tonight. We have an amazing program for you. We're going to visit French Polynesia. I want to welcome you all back, those of you who have been with us for our series. And I also want to say a special welcome to a new group of visitors tonight, friends of our special guest hosts who we will be meeting in just a moment. Pat and I have been roaming the globe for most of our adult lives, and some of that was captured in the book Rome, of course, and that was the inspiration for these programs. So we're having a lot of fun. I hope you are too. I want to say a special thank you to Andrea Savage of Unique Travel for Unique Travel Events for her support on these programs. So tonight we're going to be talking with three veteran sailors as we travel to a bear boating experience in French Polynesia. And it will last about an hour. There will be opportunity for you to raise questions during the program. Please feel free to do so. At the end, we will sit back with a glass of wine and have some conviviality, and our virtual party will be in play. So I think that sets the scene. I want to say bienvenue to my co-author and my co-host, Pat Williams, and she will introduce tonight's special guest, Pat.
Hello. Oh, thank you, my friend Eileen, and my wonderful travel partner. Besides my husband Dave, we do some trips with our husbands and our families as well. And this is a trip that we've done, and let me see if I can pull up the picture right now. Okay, this is a way to see Polynesia, and I just wanted to give you a little tutorial if you have never chartered a sailboat before. You can go to Polynesia by cruise, and almost all the cruise lines go there, and that's perfectly fine if you like that kind of thing. But there's some of us that think the only way to travel on the water is in a sailboat. And there are a couple of kinds of sailboats that are the company that we chartered from. That was Dream Yacht Charters that's all over the world, actually. We could have chartered what's on the left, a monohull, which is a single hull boat, or we could have chartered a catamaran, which is the one on the right. It's not that a monohull is bigger, those are just the pictures I brought in to use, but and there's a big difference in maneuverability and in below cabin space. People generally, my husband Dave wouldn't be caught dead on a catamaran. He loves the monohulls, and I think Ryan and Liz feel the same way. So we went off together with them at their invitation. As I told you at our last program, they're the ages of our daughter. So we were very honored to be able to come along and be mom and pop, along with Ryan and Liz and six of their friends. It was just, well, for a while it was 4, for a while it was 6, but they'll tell you that story. Well, I just want to let you know that they are, let me get that. There they are. And that's Liz and Ryan Risley. Ryan, although he can work from anywhere in the world, he really is quite a techie. He's a geek with a philanthropic heart. He's the principal and chief technological officer of Whipfle's Business Solutions Group, and because he's such a good guy in that capacity, they actually helps many nonprofits, ones that you know, like Doctors Without Borders or Special Olympics, do their good work. He's brilliant that way. Liz, my dear friend Liz, I knew as a critical care nurse. She used to work with me. She's fabulous and very accomplished, and she's turned property manager down in DC. And I'll tell you why they're in DC after I tell you one more thing. She's an avid gardener. She's actually a volunteer at the U.S. Botanic Garden downtown DC. Now they do live in Virginia, but they also live downtown, not on this boat, but on another boat in a harbor downtown. And so their presentation is coming to us from DC. I'd like to introduce to you our shipmates, Ryan and Liz Risley.
Well, thank you, Pat. That was quite an introduction. Yes, we are coming to you live from Southwest Waterfront. If you haven't been down in DC, the Wharf Marina. I used to commute downtown quite a bit, and instead of driving an hour and plus each way, we decided to have a pied d'eau. What's the water? It's in French. De l'eau, yeah, pied de l'eau. It's a foot in the water instead of a foot on the ground. Pied de terre is a typical. But we're super excited to be with you all today. And as Pat mentioned, bareboating is basically where you rent a boat like just you rent a car. When you rent with Enterprise, it doesn't come with a driver. When we rent with boats, it doesn't come with a driver. I am El Capitan, but I'm not a Coast Guard captain. I'm what's called a recreational captain, which means I can only be paid in alcohol, which is very helpful, to fuel your journey. But yeah, I cannot take compensation in money. That's the only difference basically between us captains. So I'm certified up to 60-ish feet, and as Pat mentioned, both monohulls and catamarans. We've now been on both. We do prefer monohulls, although we did just take a trip in the January on a catamaran. So we may have a cat fan here.
It was really nice.
Fortunately, yeah. So, well, thanks everybody for joining us. What we're going to go through, and I'm going to share my screen here, Steve, if that's okay.
Yep.
I'm going to bring up some slides. So we're going to go through a couple, slides, but they're really about kind of a backbone of stories. What we really want to do is kind of give you an experience of what it's like to travel halfway around the world and get on somebody else's boat and take it to places you can't get on roads, and just kind of go through that experience. And I tell you, this was something it's been on our bucket list for pretty much our whole lives. But this is something we really like to do. Probably about 20 years ago, I started this concept of micro retirements, basically trying to travel at least 6 weeks a year while we're still young enough. And there's a phrase my dad used to say, and he passed about 6 or 7 years ago, that said, climbing the mountains while you're young enough to still reach the top. And so he encouraged me to get out and travel and do, because he regretted not. And so a lot of the stuff we do is honestly based on that. And we started posting pictures, 20 years ago, even when we got married, to make sure that my dad knew we were okay. So that's how the whole video and photo blogging started. Was we were in Indonesia somewhere in 1999 or 2000. My dad's like, how am I going to know you're okay? I was like, I'll find a way to post pictures so you know we're okay. And so that's how our video and photo blogging started long ago. So thanks to my dad. Yeah, so we're going to go through a little bit of tour here. Most people are like, where is Tahiti? So we're going to start with that, give you some orientation. So is everybody see the slides here? It says surf and turf tour.
Yep, looks good.
So we call it, just real quick, we call it a surf and turf because 4 weeks aboard sailing is a lot to take. And so we try to split it up anywhere we go. We try to do a month and try to split it up with 2 weeks sailing, which is a great number of days. You get the rhythm, you get the feel for everything, you get to feel the boat. And they always say company is like fish. Definitely doesn't smell for the first 10 days at least. So the goal is really don't keep it longer than 14 days. And turf is obviously the land exploration. So getting your feet on the ground and obviously and being part of the rhythm of a town or a city. We really try to do 7 to 10 days like in one location and get the rhythm of kind of what's going on day to day. Hear the same rooster every morning behind your house, whatever you need to do. So that's the surf and turf. I do call her Queen Elizabeth. It is easier to remember. And I am always her jester. So where is Tahiti? If you can see this, if you can squint, I can zoom in, but I'm going to leave it if not. Basically, it's pretty much smack dab in the middle of nowhere. If you look at the major continents in the world, 11 hours from Tokyo, 11 hours from Chile, only 5 hours from Auckland, and just a hop skip from Rarotonga, which is just 2.5 hours away on a very local flight that's probably twice the price of LA to DC. So yeah, it's a distance to get to. You can fly through LA, which is how we went. Our stopover in LA was kind of interesting as well, because I think we had to stay over in LA one night because of a flight connection. But in general, it's a long trip. And so we do have a rule of thumb that we try to go away for a certain amount of time, depending on the airfare price. So obviously, since this one was not inexpensive, we stayed longer. So, and as Pat mentioned, I do work through the wire, so I typically will wake up at the time East Coast wakes up, and I work typically then. So if this time we were west, so I got up, I think, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. I would work until lunchtime, and then we'd go swim with the sharks. But we're from Paris. I would do the afternoon, evenings. I would work in the evening, so we would have the morning together. So feel free, by the way, to have any questions or interjections. I'm just going to roll, and hopefully I'm not the only one talking. Steve, you can interrupt me anytime with questions as well. But I do get paid to talk, so I am not short on words usually. So this is basically the first sight you see when you're flying in on a connection flight. We fly into Tahiti, which is a first world island. I mean, you basically have everything. I think there's even Costco there. That's kind of our moniker of whether it's a first world country or not. Something like Costco, a large scale provisioning location. Tahiti is just a big city, just like any. That's the island of Tahiti and the city of Tahiti right there. And then we took a flight out to what's called Raiatea, which is an island north of that. Too far to sail. To be honest, you can pick up a boat in Tahiti proper and sail, but it's a couple days sailing. And the rule of thumb with our boat trips usually are we plan a trip, we figure out where we're going to go, rough itinerary, and then we send out an invite. And depending on the number of people that we have interested, we just get a bigger boat. So that's usually the way it works. And most of the places, Dreamy Out's been great working with us on that. You just get a bigger boat. So this one is 5 cabins, basically, and I think 3 or 4 heads. A head is a bathroom, cabins a berth or a bedroom. We'll use language interchangeably to help with those that don't know the vernacular. But yeah, so this is as you fly in. Any thoughts on the fly in or the color of the water? She's really likes clear water, obviously, and warm water.
Yeah, there's Tahiti is known for its just gigantic amount of hues of green and blue, so it's really beautiful inside the reef.
Yeah, excellent point. Actually, in the next slide here shows a little bit more of that water as you come in. There's a really clear barrier reef that sits around the main island, and we can go through the geology and flora and fauna if anybody's interested, but we'll just look at the pretty pictures for now. But there's a barrier reef, and these reefs have cuts, and you have to come in and out these cuts very carefully if you're doing crossings or passages to the other island chains. So the Tuamotus is another island chain just east of this. Really want to go out there, but it's a long haul. It's a good 18 hours, just full on sailing. And you have to have the right weather, the right wind, etc. So with a crew of what do we have a total number of people? 11? Mm-hmm. We had 11 people aboard, 10 souls plus a captain. We were well staffed, but some folks were green, and that's okay to have green beans on board. They're not called green because they turn green. It just means they don't have experience, but they might turn green too.
And an interesting thing to note about the cuts in the reef is that the U.S. military, way back when,
Army Corps of Engineers
blew those holes through the reef.
Yeah, there's a number of areas throughout the islands that they opened up basically for shelter for the military ships during World War II. Mm-hmm. But the coming into the island, this is actually, we were flying out. This is a picture from when we left. But this is actually the marina that we left from. And if you can, I don't know if you'll be able to see my cursor, but basically the boat we took is kind of in that last row, furthest away, next to the big catamaran. So great ship, and a little confidence builder when we went in. I was checking in, getting our boat, and right next to the office was this huge mast, which is the large part of the boat that sticks up out of the water, holds the sail, and it was cracked in half. And I said, "What happened?" He's like, we had a windstorm, and the guy, had some trouble on the reef. I'm like, okay, like I'm a decent captain, I'm not worried about that, but watching carnage as you're checking your boat out is not always a good good confidence builder. I don't think I told you that until just now. So.
No.
Yeah, there's things my parents or my mom is still finding out about my childhood. So we do that intentionally so people don't worry. Pat, anything about the inbound check-in or kind of your first impressions when we got to the final island?
Yeah, one thing about chartering a boat is you can get it provisioned or not. You can charter a boat and order a captain, which I would do on our next trip, possibly. Get a captain that you pay and also have it provisioned for you. So you really then are just a passenger. There's some new program on TV where people are aboard these ships and everyone is serving them all the wonderful food and they're just laying back and decorating the bow like I like to do and just enjoying themselves. So the way we did it, bareboating is you get to run the boat yourself. But getting on board, it was so you all up for grabs as to who sleeps where.
Yeah, and you typically want to sleep with a couple that you came with, as a couple that you came with. That's the kind of cruise we were on, at least.
And you brought people that are wonderful cooks, and that was so nice.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. We had some great friends aboard, and it's it's a whole different experience. It is like camping. I'll be just completely blunt. They say sailing is just fixing things in exotic places, which is true. But as long as you're up for an experience, it's the only way to have absolute privacy in places that very few humans have actually gone. So I can't remember the percentage of how much of the earth is water, but this is the best, in my opinion, way to see it. So so this is us coming in, and then of course boarding, right? How do you get on the boat? This is actually not the picture of us boarding that one day, but this is actually a picture of us refilling water. We'll talk about provisioning and what that's like, but this is actually in Moorea, but this is a typical dock that we would have to stop at to provision, but this is a pretty fancy one. It's connected to a restaurant that's pretty famous. So the key though is provisioning is obviously part of it. Raiatea has a large grocery store near what's called the quay. They call it quays, which is where you basically, it's a concrete pier. And one of Elizabeth's destinations as she goes on trips is actually the international grocery stores. She considers it kind of one of the must-see stops. Because the selection obviously is very local, typically, or things you can only find, in that area. So it's rare at home that we'd go up and down every aisle. She's very intentional at home when she's shopping, but international grocery stores, she'll walk every single aisle. So super cool, and I love it too, because obviously on board you can cook. Obviously, so there's some restaurants around as well, but Tahiti's pretty. I'll just say it's not sparse or desolate, but it's very specific about where there's kind of pockets of civilization. So, Pat, anything about eating or provisioning that you want to add?
No.
Yeah. All right. I'll just keep stopping along the way. We can keep going. So you're going to see just basically picture after picture of essentially it was like being in a postcard, and it really does look like a postcard pretty much everywhere we were. So the challenge is trying to encapsulate what it looks like when you're there. We didn't have at the time, you have a 360 camera now, which takes a picture in every direction. It does 360 video as well. I didn't have it at this time, so really hard to get a feel for that. But now with virtual reality and augmented reality, there's ways to actually experience that firsthand. So there's a little Gilligan's Island, just a tiny little island that's exposed about 6 hours a day, or maybe double that, 12 hours a day, based on the tides. But there's lots of these little islands around. The other big thing we do quite a bit of is getting in the dinghy. And so your big boat comes with a little boat. And oops, sorry, my slides went too far ahead. Okay, there we go. Your big boat comes with a little boat. And that is actually the color of the water. Those are not my feet.
Yes, it is.
Those my feet? I'll ask her.
No.
Those are not my, she says they're not my feet. And those are not your feet. Are they? Okay. So anyway, those aren't our feet, but there's somebody on our crew. But your big boat comes with a little boat, and it's called a dinghy, or the dink, D-I-N-K, or whatever, and it's your tender. And you take that boat out to go snorkel on the reef, or you take it to town. If you need to get provisions, you anchor the boat out. So rarely do we come into a dock like you saw in that first picture. We usually anchor the boat out, leave it in the water on an anchor and a chain. You get in the tiny boat and you go to shore. And that's usually pretty fun. You got no cell phone signal for the most part, but you have radios. So it is kind of like a little roughing it experience to kind of, communicate back from shore to ship. Sometimes you sneak up on the people on the boat and not tell them you're home, and then make no noises to scare them. I got yelled at for doing that one night, but you gotta have a little fun. So this is an example of just before you get in the water.
Speaking of technology,
What's that?
Speaking of technology, I want to mention a shock that we had, or that Dave had actually. Dave's been a captain of a ship before and taken sailing. He's been sailing all his life, and he's used to using these big charts like this that are maps of the ocean and the land and where they meet and where the lighthouses are and all the channel markers and the distance and so on. And so he got on the boat and he's looking down below for the charts, because there's a chart table where you navigate, you plan where you're going to go next. And he's looking around and he said to Ryan, "I can't find the charts." And Ryan pulls out his iPad and says, "Dave, we're navigating with this." And it was a great learning experience, but we thought that was a funny story.
Where we're going, we don't need charts, basically. Well, that's true. And actually, Dave was a fantastic co-pilot / helmsman navigator. But I would say the only point of pause I had was when he was helping us navigate. It was a narrow channel and there's reefs on both sides. And I said, just hug the green mark. And we were about halfway into the trip. And he's standing on, and I think I have a picture of it. He's standing on the cushion so he could see over this canvas that we have. And he said to me, he's like, "Which one's the green one?"
He's colorblind.
I'm like, wait, what? You colorblind? So navigating for boating is not like a highway. You have to know which one is red and green. Red is on the right depending on where you're going. Left needs to be green, needs to be on the left sometimes. So knowing which color is which is important. They do have shapes as well as colors. So and then numbers for those that don't know shapes for some reason. Yeah, that was a big shock, and that was at least halfway into the trip that I realized that he did not know
That was pretty funny.
colors. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, looks for the none or the can, which is basically square or triangle. So that was good fun. But yes, navigating on an iPad and with a unique ability to see all colors the same. Great for diversity and inclusion, by the way. So this is kind of on the way out to do some snorkeling. This is what we look at. You know, we left shore on the dink and we're headed out to the reef to plop in the water. And the biggest challenge with snorkeling off a dink is getting back in the dinghy. It's definitely a challenge. This is not the dinghy, by the way. This is a catamaran that's parked out just beyond us. So these are fellow travelers. Just picture being in an all-water RV park. This is the RV next to us. And we went to a destination that had a lot of RVs. Once we went to this really cool snorkeling area where it was a creek, basically, between those barrier islands and the ocean. And so what would happen is the water would flow in straight from the ocean, but it was very shallow. So you could basically walk along the shore of this little creek, get in the water, and it was basically like a roller coaster. Basically, it would bring you in about 6 or 7 knots, which is 7 miles per hour roughly, floating past all the corals and everything like that. But it was a big destination for folks that were on the island. So this is the highest concentration of boats other than a marina that we actually saw. What's ironic is they were all identical.
That's the coral garden. That was just spectacular. I mean, we all snorkel. Oh, I hope Steve can do a poll and see who all snorkels. But you snorkel, but this is snorkeling without, you just lie flat and this channel would just carry you along between the two islands through this magnificent coral garden.
It was absolutely crazy. I'm getting a survey here. So how do we feel about the water? Oh, sorry. I just hit my wife in the head. Sorry. Let me answer this one.
Host and panelists cannot vote.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I think you know which one we vote for. We are scuba divers. So tip there. While you work on that survey, I don't know if I'm allowed to advance the slide, Steve, while we're doing that survey. I think so. This is the island we were going to buy. Unfortunately, out of our price range. So this is one of the private islands. There's a bunch of islands all around, obviously, but this is definitely cool. And this is actually Pat's picture where she caught some of the clouds in the background. Just looks, again, like wallpaper or a postcard for sure. Oh, the polls are in. Oh, there you go. We got a lot of snorkelers.
Good.
Super.
Wowzers. Nice. So you two scuba divers, you call us. We'll go out.
That's great.
This is another little palapa. I don't think they call that. It's Spanish, I think it is. But this is typical hard structure stabilization there done by one of the hotels just to protect their beach sand. They do have an ecological footprint that's extremely robust, meaning the folks that are conserving and maintaining, relative to, there's not a lot of trash. I mean, we've been a lot of places where, it's gorgeous, but there's just nothing, you know, in terms of conservation or things like that. But they definitely keep it up, and they've got a lot of policing related to it. They don't let you drop anchor in the reefs and things like that. But this is one area where they try to preserve some of the beachfront. And then this is cool when you land on one of the islands. Sometimes the islands are completely desolate, but I mean, just as a coconut grove, basically, where it's an island that gets covered with water for periods of the day, but during high or low tide, when the water is down, you can just pretty much walk around. Nobody climbed the trees. Nobody crushed any coconuts or anything like that in this particular trip, but definitely a lot of coconut drinks as we went through. So lots of these islands all around. This is, I do random pictures sometimes, but the water clarity and the sandy bottoms were just absolutely crazy. We had not been someplace, I think, other than trying to think there was another place that had water like this, but it was just absolutely gorgeous. It's flushed so often because of those barrier islands and the way the channels come in and out that the water gets turned over. It's nothing's, you know, heavily nitrogen rich or organic. Like if anybody's been to the west coast of Costa Rica, I know, Pat, you know Costa Rica a little bit. The west coast of Costa Rica is extremely rich with bituminous, you know, dark sand, black sand beaches, but the water itself is also full of life-giving nutrients, but also means it's not clear in some areas. So this was the opposite, highly flushed and warm enough for my wife not to be freezing all the time. Although she usually is just one big goosebump unless it's 90 degrees or higher.
When you're inside the reefs of any of the Tahitian islands, it just looks like one big gigantic swimming pool.
Yeah.
It's really pretty.
Yeah. Any questions so far? I'm just going to keep going here.
No,
We got a lot here to go through.
I think people are just in awe with
okay.
how beautiful the photos are.
These are all pictures from us or the crew. So yeah, this is definitely a real first use. Every single night they had these things, sunsets, like clockwork. And from pretty much anywhere you were in the islands, except when we were at the Pearl Gardens on the west side. No, was it the east side? I can't remember. Oh, Huahine. When we were in the east side, it would set over the water. So we definitely had quite a number of sunsets that were just absolutely gorgeous.
I knew we could get some questions out of folks here. Karen Toman says, did you visit Bora Bora?
Yes, yeah, we did. So we started in Raiatea, and I have a map that kind of went over all this, but it was in Google Earth and it made people dizzy usually when I show it. So I didn't bring it on today, but I'm happy to go through the map. But basically, picture Tahiti as an island chain. Tahiti is down at the south. Raiatea is north of that. Bora Bora is north of Raiatea. Huahine, which we'll go to in a second, is actually east of Raiatea. So we did Raiatea, Huahine, Bora Bora. So we did Bora Bora as well. And those pictures come up here in a minute. Yeah, great question. Thanks. So again, sunsets, there's just lots of other sailboats sitting around. You just become part of the crew of folks that are anchored out. Some of these are transients, meaning people that are actually sailing through, if you can imagine. They're coming from Hawaii on a couple 1,000-mile journey. It takes about 3 weeks to get from LA to Hawaii. If anybody's interested in sailing that, let me know, because I'm not interested in that right now. But you can sail between, you know, major bodies and major continents, but it just takes weeks, not hours. So some of these folks are literally passing through. We'll talk a little bit about food. This is a buffet on one of our little journeys. We did a jungle trek at some point, and the layout of this is papaya, plantain, coconut, and somebody help me with the top. Is that a miniature watermelon?
It looks like.
Yeah, baby watermelon. I mean, obviously everything's just amazingly fresh, and you know, you want to only eat stuff you can see peeled in front of you. That's kind of one of the rules of staying healthy and safe. But obviously this was just cracked open. Pat, anything about those are banana leaves? What are those, elephant leaves or something behind them? Remember those monsters?
I'm not sure.
They use everything natural, you know, even for your tablecloth, obviously.
Speaking of staying safe, Michael Moraney was wondering, did you see any sharks?
Yes, and we have pictures of sharks because we were in the water with them, actually. My wife tried to get rid of me sometimes, but I learned to be insured for less than I'm worth alive. And so the goal is that she doesn't have incentive to push me in every time. But we did see and swam with sharks when we were in Moorea, which is just west of Tahiti. So yes, black tip reef sharks are pretty common. They're pretty docile as well. Nurse sharks, no relation. Nurse sharks are also very docile and are known to fall asleep if you flip them over. But yeah, so no bull sharks, no great whites, in the time there. But yes, definitely sharks are abundant in that area. Great question.
Photos to come.
Photos to come. More sunsets. I mean, obviously actually this is a sunrise. Actually, this is sunrise. This is leaving one of the ports of call. I had just finished some work that morning. We were close enough to shore to get some other things there. And then, this is just more. There's a lot of boat pictures. More those. I want to get to the kind of island land pictures shortly here. So every once in a while we'd stop at a marina to basically, I can't remember if we washed clothes here or something. I mean, you don't have everything on board you need, so we provision. So some of these stops we'd have are pretty swanky. You can see this little cruise ship. It's actually a private vessel there on the right. Folks are constantly coming in and out as well, but this is most likely a stopover for them on a longer trip. So then we head inland. So obviously a little bit of island exploration. We did a vanilla tour in one of the trips, and I can't remember what this is on Raiatea, I think.
Just north of there in Tahaa.
Tahaa, my bad. Tahaa, she knows better. And so you basically take an off-road journey into the woods, so to speak, up on top of the mountain. And so this is the view from the top as we're looking back down into the water. And then I'm going to let Elizabeth and Pat talk through kind of what we saw there. So who's going to go first?
I can talk about the vanilla plantation. And,
Sure.
Pat, add to it. The vanilla is from the vanilla orchid plant. I think a lot of people aren't aware that it's actually an orchid plant. So they grow beautifully in Tahiti. So there are a few vanilla farms there. So once the bloom is pollinated and can turn into the vanilla bean, here you see green, it's a 2-year process to become actual vanilla of the product that you're aware of for baking or cooking or whatever. And on the islands there, you might hear horns in the background.
There's a boat leaving right now. Sorry for that noise. I have to back up and honk 3 times.
One of the big things that the Tahitians use the vanilla for is for a vanilla sauce that they put with fish, and it's delicious if anyone wants to try it. And those of us on the trip brought back vanilla beans. They turn it into powder, so they open the vanilla pod up and ferment and dry it, and we were able to bring pure vanilla powder home, which was a new concept for us. Absolutely delicious. And just to share, the price of vanilla is high these days because in the last few years, people have yearned for real natural vanilla, not the knockoff that you get for $1 for the whole bottle. So that's what's driven up the price of vanilla, because it takes 2 years from start to finish, and there aren't that many places that have it. And the other thing to know about vanilla is the native pollinator no longer exists. So on the vanilla farms, a staff member has to go every morning and hand pollinate the orchids that open up that morning, early in the morning. And that's the chance you have, and it'll be a new flower the next day. So it's a daily thing in the morning.
So this is actually one of the pollinations where you have to follow the guy around as he pollinated. So there's no other way to say that. But yeah, this is the vanilla, or is it orchid?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, an orchid. And then they take out the is it the stamen or the pistil? Can't remember. Anyway, and they dust the pollination and they make beans. And yeah, it was pretty amazing to see just how they worked. And I think there was something about stroking the beans after they were done so that you can tenderize them or something like that. So, and this is our guide, just to going through his little soliloquy about bean farming.
Pat, did you want to add anything to the vanilla encounter?
This couple lived there in this open air, big spread out hut with an open kitchen, and they talked to us about how it was just to live there. And he employed the people that were making vanilla. And I asked the lady, I said, so, because they were like in their 70s, and I said, so how do you take care of yourself? She said, oh, my dear, tamanu oil, huile de tamanu, is
Oh, there you go.
it's for everything. It's an antiseptic, it's a healing ointment. So I had never heard of it. So I had to you can actually get it online now, but tamanu oil. And the other thing while I'm doing show and tell that I thought was wonderful was the coconut oil with the monoi blossom inside that gives the coconuts this wonderful aroma. It just smells like Polynesia.
Absolutely. Yep. And Pat, you know that mailbox behind him? Do you remember what that is?
I think you have another mailbox picture that maybe is even better, don't you?
Yeah.
I think so.
Isn't it?
So somebody asked, yeah, here it comes.
All right.
Well,
We got to keep them coming. These wonderful pictures coming.
Can you see that?
So does anyone know why the mailbox is shaped so strangely? Anyone know? I didn't. Well, it's for mail, but it's also for delivery of your baguettes. Remember, we're in a French place.
Oh, a bee.
So the baguettes can fit in the mailbox. You can get one or probably 2 or 3 in the mailbox in the morning to have with your coffee.
Hey, a couple of questions came in there. That's hilarious. Do the French have mailboxes like that? You know, okay, what is Joy Gaddy says, what is the natural pollinator?
So the natural pollinator was a bee way back when, but went extinct. So then the humans have to do all the work. The native pollinator is extinct.
And then Sheila asks, Pat, can you look at that bottle and spell the word tamanu?
Yeah, it's Tamanu.
Okay, you almost got it right, Sheila.
Tamanu. I can write it in. Okay.
Great.
Fantastic, great questions. So we were on, actually where that little creek cut through the reef, and we were about to get back on our boat and our dinghy motor wouldn't start. And so I pulled the boat by swimming with my teeth while I was bringing some folks back to the boat. And we passed these folks and they were, I believe, getting married. And I turned around and the people in the boat had their phone cameras with them and they're like, oh my gosh, they're getting married. They're in a canoe being paddled in Tahiti and there's a rainbow behind them. We should take their picture. And so we did. And I know they tried to get the picture back to them at some point. So it was kind of just random times, right?
Can I add something back to the whole baguette?
Yes. Oh, baguettes, yes.
I couldn't remember when. Okay, so obviously you now know that the baguette is a special morning delivery there. They do that as well when you're on boats. So we have that happen daily in the morning. They'll bring you fresh baguettes as well.
And fresh tuna right out of the water. And I don't know if you have a picture of it, but Ryan said, oh boy, I'm going to cut this up and serve everyone some, I guess you call that sashimi. But
yes.
I thought it sounded gross, and he gave me a bite. It was so good.
You can't get any fresher for sure.
Picture later.
Exactly. So yeah, more pictures. This is our dinghy right there, that little yellow thing floating. It's really not that large, but there's some of the huts in the background. Get a little paddle sports in. This is Queen Elizabeth, I believe. That I'd recognize your shoulders anywhere. So this is the island of Moorea. So that's the peak of Moorea behind us there. And this is the harbor that was opened up for the World War II ships as well. Everybody's seen these typical pictures when they try to attract you to go. These are the overwater bungalows. Our friends Mikhail and Susan had one of these for a few days or whatever. And these are actually stingrays in the foreground. And again, more of these overwater bungalows. This is very popular because the water is so clear and you pretty much have a fish tank right there in your room. And this is really what it looks like if you've ever seen them in pictures and things like that. And this is breakfast delivery. They have room service, and that's how they deliver room service.
There's a delivery, yeah.
That's how you deliver it. Exactly. And then here's some stingrays. You probably can see them in the foreground there. They look like stones, but they have eyes. So don't step on them. You don't want to step on a stingray or a skate. Both bad things. Shuffle your feet when you're near them. That's the tip in the sand. They don't like to be kicked, but they don't like worse being stepped on. So we're at Pearl Central now. Oh, sorry, go Steve.
More baguette talk. Karen Toman asks, any humidity, does it bother the baguettes?
They go stale pretty quickly, but on board in the galley, we would find other uses for them, such as French toast the next morning, things like that.
Yeah, but I don't usually eat bread, but those baguettes are crazy good. And so we would come around and for $2 each or something like that, we would definitely get them. By the way, I do want to say, and we mentioned in the beginning, but so Pat speaks French, and as you know, French Polynesia, that's probably what they speak as well. And so you have to use a radio quite a bit, and you can't expect someone who answers the radio or VHF for calling to speak English, and they usually don't. And so typically I would have Pat get on, and I'd tell her, okay, these are the things we need to go. We need to know what's the whatever window for weather, or can we dock, or can we get water, or whatever. And so she would get on, talking 1,000 miles an hour in French. So thank you, Pat. We'd literally be fumbling without you. So we have, everybody heard of Tahitian pearls? Anybody? I had, but I didn't know how expensive they were. So over to you, Elizabeth.
Or that there were so many colors of them. So I knew about Tahitian pearls, and I thought of them as being different hues of gray or looking very close to black or charcoal. So until going to Tahiti, I had no idea that there was a full rainbow assortment of Tahitian pearls. And for one day, we went to a oyster farm. So we got to snorkel and dive and learn about the entire pearl farm production from start to finish. Mm-hmm. And it was really fun to see from start to finish, and then go in the water underneath and see them.
Yeah, so it's not just like a farm where you go in and watch them do the harvest, but you can actually go down. It's kind of like walking the grapevines mm-hmm. and a winery. You basically swim the vines that hang all of the oysters. And so, are they oysters? I can't remember. I think oysters. Anyway, so, so you're swimming along and you've got these things hanging up from the bottom, and you can actually see specifically on these lines, those are the oysters that are sitting there. And they've been seeded with a little piece of sand or another piece of shell, and they inherit the color of the shell that's been put there. So if they want darker ones, they put a dark shell in there, and it basically builds up from there. So, Pat, do you remember anything specifically about this? I'm going to show 2 more slides here that are kind of cool. But this was a interesting experience, to say the least. For sure.
Yeah, highlight
process. There was some really cool clam shells, and this little it looks like a blue snake down there on the bottom is actually the edge of a large clamshell. When it opens up, it's got this just iridescent turquoise blue, inner, I don't know what they call it, but the fleshy part inside. It's absolutely gorgeous. And then there's got to have your vegetables. So we have every salad, we have a cucumber. Okay, this is not that kind of cute. This is a sea cucumber, not edible. And they're kind of like those, what are those things? Those little toys that kids would get that would jump out of your hand.
Slinkies.
Yeah, whatever. And so you grab them, they're a little slimy, but we didn't touch them because you're not supposed to touch wildlife. But this is one of Pat's sea cucumber photos.
We went snorkeling off of, I think it was Tuahine, out of the dinghy, and in the shallows, there must have been millions of those things. Yeah. It was very hard to step without stepping on one of those.
They're quite
it was
prolific.
Like a maze or a puzzle.
So Dave, Pat, and I paddled up this freshwater creek, basically, and they gave us kayaks, or how did we paddle up there? Oh no, we took the dinghy, I think, maybe. And we went through this hike, and it was absolutely gorgeous. The flora and fauna looked like something combined with like Jurassic Park plus a foreign, an alien planet, basically. And then for some of you may know what these flowers are.
That's ginger.
Okay,
well, beautiful ginger bloom.
Someone by the name of Elizabeth, then. There you go, Botanic Garden geek. So there's these, and then we're crossing one of the smaller creeks, and we look down, and I'm like, That's not a rock. That is a freshwater eel, basically just in about 3 inches of water. And so we kept walking. And then there's obviously some of the island children who clearly have been to Vegas. Whatever they do, you know. But the kids were just awesome and very, very inquisitive, speak English as well. This is our boat that we were on, but way off in the distance. So we're on a little deserted island, just checking things out. This is Queen E right there, doing a little glam. And again, sunset. So we left Huahine and Tahiti, sorry, Bora Bora and Raiatea. And then the second half of the trip was, and we don't have nearly as many pictures for that, by the way, was going down to Moorea and Tahiti, which are the main islands. And so we rented a place right there in Moorea, and they had kayaks, and the place backed out directly to a creek. And that creek, literally within about 4 minutes of paddling, there were sharks. And
rays.
And rays. So if you can see the person in the distance there, they're the bait person. They're the person that's supposed to lead the sharks away from you. I don't know what happened to him, but I'm kidding. People just stand around. The sharks are docile. You can hang out with them. You can see here, the sharks and rays get along together. So it's a very bipartisan part of the water, and just more sharks and rays. So cool thing was, I mean, they're like sea puppies. If anybody ever seen sea rays in person, if you've gone to Cayman Islands or something like that, I mean, they're very docile. You just gotta be careful. They try to eat everything. So if you have your hand out, they think you're gonna feed them. And they are trained literally to nibble on anything and your hand. And so you can get scratched pretty quickly, so be careful. This is on the Moorea side. If you can see in the distance on the right, a shadow, it's kind of just below the mountain, or just below the clouds, that is Tahiti, the main island of Tahiti. And this channel between them is known as a spawning zone for whales. And specifically, they let you go out, and it's one of those areas, even though they're ecological, they let you go out and swim with the whales. And so there's a whole process you go through. You go on a dinghy, and as soon as they see the whales, usually it's when they're spawning, there's a baby whale and a mama whale, and the baby whale has to breathe, I think it's 4 or 10 times more often. I can't remember which it is. And so when the baby whale's up at the top and the mama whale's down below is when you go swim out. The key is don't get between the baby and the mama, just like just about every species you can imagine, including male and female Homo sapiens. And you can basically swim with the whales out there. So after I was done working one day, I went out for lunch and did a bunch of that as well. Absolutely gorgeous, and it's very humbling, I think, to be around creatures that large. Can't really bring cameras. Oh, what is this? Speaking of wildlife, Elizabeth and Pat, at some point one night, went out on a date with 5 other gentlemen or locals, and they went out dancing. So this is from Pat and Elizabeth's date. Dave, I hope you're not watching. And this is, I guess, another guy that Elizabeth met during the day. I don't know how they got in there. But you.
He took our pink.
Okay. You stopped texting? You stopped texting. Okay. I'm totally kidding by that. This is a question mark. What is this? Is it the shoe of a gnome growing live on a vine? Anybody know what this is?
I don't remember the name of it.
Yay, we stumped everybody. All right. There'll be a bonus question. You get a free cerveza if you can tell me what that seed pod is. This is on the main island. There's waterfalls and all sorts of caves and all the things you'd expect to see on a mainland. And then my favorite part of the entire trip, fresh mahi and tuna. So this is fresh tuna, literally cut, like I think within hours. And they stamp them right away and they put them in place. And I'm just a huge fan of sashimi. And so Elizabeth asked, she's like, do you want some wasabi? Do you want some? I was like, nope. So we just got that, and that's my knife, and that's all I had for dinner most nights. And we've talked.
And it's only $4 a pound there.
Yeah, it's the actual price is on them somewhere over there, but it was ridiculously inexpensive comparatively. So that became a staple. Yeah, Pat.
Let's throw in another poll.
Oh yeah, go for it. So we have 2 slides left, and then we can do Q&A.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. Hopefully everybody's eaten already. I'm not making you hungry. We had, and I'll just be completely frank, we had about 2,000 pictures roughly between, and those are the highlights between folks on the crew and everything. So we whittled it down to, I don't know, 60 or so. There's not a lot of pictures of us in here, obviously, because we want to show kind of what it's like. But we were obviously very excited that you all joined us here today. And there is a bonus round of pictures of behind the scenes as well after this. But before we go there if you even want to. We can answer any more questions, but that's the highlights to start with, and appreciate your time.
Man, that was awesome. Pat, did you want me to do another poll question?
Yes, please.
How about have you been to Polynesia? Here,
Okay.
let's see what. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we can't vote.
Some of us have to put our glasses on.
Well, you did it vicariously just now.
Okay.
Technically, you
Well,
now have.
this was definitely a good location because most people have not been to Polynesia.
Wow,
Yeah.
impressive. Okay, well, technically now you have been.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, let's see.
We have another poll about kind of trip, a kind of
Let's see here.
kind of cruise ship.
Oh, okay. Let me hold on. And while I'm trying to do this, guys, anybody who's got questions, feel free to. Okay, what's going on? Oh,
There's
stop
some
here.
Q&A
There we
here.
go. Okay. You said, okay, so now the next one is, what are your thoughts on boating? This will be an interesting one to see.
I'll answer. Oh, go ahead,
and-
Steve.
And Joy had, while people are filling that out, Joy has a question for Ryan. Ryan, why is that you can jump higher than others?
There's actually a trick to it if you want to know a tip about jumping.
Bend your knees.
So yeah, the key is bend your knees. It looks like you're jumping a lot higher. If you look at our waist, okay, I am actually jumping higher than everybody, but it looks even more because I'm bending my knees.
Yeah, if you could jump up and put your feet up behind you. Yeah,
He was
I thought it might have something to do with Pat and Elizabeth's dancing partners that you just, really felt like you had to.
Yeah.
they were going back to Ryan.
It keeps me on my toes. That's the
And
idea.
Dave.
That's the idea.
I
All
love
right, so-
Patricia's question. She said, "Are you looking for crew members for your next adventure?"
Always.
I know she's
Always.
ready to go. She's ready to go to Cuba when we can go to Cuba.
It's on our bucket list for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we have a couple pictures here. This is the last. It's behind the scenes. It's actually nothing related to sunsets, but
Okay.
just kind of the dorky stuff that happens behind the scenes. So this is to embarrass Pat and Dave mainly.
Oh no.
I'm kidding.
It's not.
I'm kidding. No. So there's a lot of geek tech that happens. We set up hammocks. We basically try, pass the time, get the
Oh
breeze.
yeah, good.
This is Queen Elizabeth checking on me, make sure I'm still awake. Because as soon as you try to fall asleep, that's when she comes around. This is cruising underway. That's Dave's lookout, making sure he knows the red from the green.
Oh yeah, there he is. Yeah, that was his position.
This is dinner time. This is down below in the main salon where we would eat our dinners.
That's good.
This is how the crew got along after a few days. Yeah. Elizabeth was kind of in charge of that. A lot of coconut drinks. Definitely too many coconut drinks. Queen Elizabeth at the helm. This is her Blue Water Helms experience, of course. There's more Dave, and we do sometimes do hands-free driving because we gotta look over top, and that's our little dirigible I think behind us. And then we always have to stay clean, so there's plenty of ways to do so. There is a shower on the back, and I think something was I was getting sand out of my ears. I was just kidding about the size of the boat. This is actually the original boat that we went out on. We stayed there on that boat for probably 10 days or so. Tough quarters, no kitchen, and no bathrooms, but it fit us all. Well, this is a subset of the group, so. Behind the scenes, what it's like to live.
That's good.
Karen asks, did you learn much from the locals about the way of life?
Well, whoever wants to chip in. I know one day we went out to provision and we learned about Anywhere that you'd want a provision from was completely closed that day. I don't remember what day it was. It didn't seem obvious to us, but we came back with no provisions, completely empty, and we weren't sure we were going to be allowed back on the boat.
Meaning the crew was going to be mad, not that they would have any customs issues.
I said we had to make do with whatever food we had on board for another day.
They're like, well, we have 11 people, so who's first? So we definitely, water was probably the biggest thing, finding out from the locals where to get things. Taxi drivers are amazingly prolific with information. So we learned a lot of history about that from taxi drivers. And then in Raiatea, there was a market there. So they had all of the things that they would make locally on the island. So you could talk to them as well. So they were very helpful. And
Remember, we brought a French lady on board with us for one afternoon. So she brought us all pareos. Just gave them to us.
Right.
Yeah.
How did we get her on board? I don't remember how she agreed. Yeah, so we met a woman and she came with us and she took us to a really cool snorkel spot. And then she left. I can't remember how. Was it quickly?
She was with us for a few hours.
Yeah, so that was cool. I can't remember how that all started, but yeah, that was always interesting. Did you meet also?
That poll, Steve, that you showed quickly about whether people would want to try a charter.
Here you go.
Whoa.
That was interesting.
Nearly 50%. All right.
Obviously, looking at the photos that you took, you did a little scuba diving. How many tanks did you take on the boat?
So the interesting thing about scuba diving is I always spend a lot more, and Elizabeth sees a lot more when she snorkels. So, which means she spends a lot less and sees more. I spend a lot more and see less. And so
we're the same.
In Tahiti, I had planned to go scuba diving, but we wound up just snorkeling because literally you can see so much just by snorkeling because the waters are pretty shallow where you're going. And so the reefs are shallow. If you're diving, you're going on the wall, on the outside of the island. And those are drift dives, meaning it's pretty heavy current. You do see plenty, but it is pelagic. I mean, it is straight down to 6,000 feet on the side of the mountain side. So we did not do any drift or wall diving because we saw so much just right there.
Yeah, we didn't miss not scuba diving. It was all so visible snorkeling. Yeah, did a little surface dive, but
yeah, it's usually $40 to $50 a tank, for dives, but there it was considerably more. The price didn't drive it though. Honestly, we just didn't have the want after being in the water pretty much every day and seeing just about everything there was. But great question. Yeah, we would normally scuba dive places like Bonaire or anywhere like that. Definitely does.
Karen wins the award for the great questions tonight. She has another one. Are the waters rough for sailing or diving?
So the entire island is protected by those reefs. At one point, I can bring up a map here, but at one point we did a poll with the group and said we want to go do a small passage, which basically means about 5 hours of sailing between a main island and another island. And we would want to make sure that the wind is favorable and the waves are favorable. So when we have that many people, I have a rule: it's first safety, then comfort, then fun. And so safety first, right? Is the boat capable of going through what it needs to go through? Next is comfort. Are people going to be like nauseous or anything like that underway? Meaning, are we so heeled over that we're scalloping in the water? And then last, fun. Nobody drinks aboard. And I'll just go through this real quick because you need all hands when you need all hands, but we never hit a situation because we always try to reef early and often, which means take down the sail, reduce your risk. So everywhere we went, we were completely fine. We had some unexpected rainstorms, squalls come up, so people get a little wet. A towel that was hanging out, which was just about dry, just wet all again from the rain. So that's the rule of thumb. If you put something out and it's almost dry, you're going to have a rainstorm soon. But yeah, everything else smooth wherever we were. Again, very protected. Everything is inside of reefs except for the crossing that we did over to Huahine. Great question.
Well, Eileen and Pat, do you want me to ask people to raise their hands and we can transition to the...
Yes, please. I think it's party time. Everybody grab a glass of wine.
Yeah, so if you want to, if you raise your hand, I will move you over to the other side of the room. Here we go. Okay. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and put up the poll on what time works best for these travel parties, just in case anybody decides that they want to take off. And it's once a month now, right? Is that
once a month?
Once a month.
Right.
okay? I like that. I like that schedule a lot better.
We appreciate you. So we change it to whatever works for you.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm moving people over when they raise their hand.
I don't
And
know.
let us know when there's questions that pop up that we can
Yeah.
answer.
yeah.
Well, Karen says that she always found rough waters for diving and sailing in Hawaii.
I
Yeah,
agree
that's
with
rough.
that.
Rough and cold. Yeah.
Tahiti's not like that.
Yeah, Hawaii doesn't have that barrier island around the entire island. It just drops straight from the coast. So if you go to Kanapali or Maui or anything like that, the water just goes straight to the coast and there's no barrier. So you have basically rough ocean water just smacking into the side of the island. So the current is high and the water doesn't ever get warm because it's coming from deep ocean, and it's got no break between the ocean and the island itself. So yeah.
Karen Magley had a question. Do you feel like the cuts that the military put through the reef that you talked about, Liz, that they were destructive to the environment?
They definitely, at the time, it obviously destroyed that section of reef and the marine life. But when we were there, that was decades ago. So to me, I feel like we saw plenty. Felt like when we would go snorkeling that we saw anything small to pelagic. So seems to have recovered and seems to be in balance to us. When you would see those cuts, it wasn't obvious that that's what happened. It wasn't like a cement wall that's completely straight and squared off
70 years
that a
later.
human would have done.
Yeah, it had some time to rebound.
Did you look at the best time of year because of weather? Was that a factor?
Yeah, we usually try to do definitely not full rainy season, not full dry season, because you'll be more overrun with tourists.
We are tourists.
Speaking of that, though, Tahiti, now I may not get this quite right, but back when we did this trip, Tahiti in a year gets how many tourists Hawaii gets in a day or a week?
Yeah, there's very few. Yeah, very few tourists go out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we usually go shoulder season just because the weather is just kind of ideal. It's not too crazy. And yeah, we do like to not be with throngs of other tourists, is what you were saying, because we are tourists. Yeah.
Barbara and Margaret Smith ask, and I don't remember, did you guys tell us what month you took this trip in?
September into October.
Yeah.
Karen asked, did any of the taxi drivers speak English? We never took a taxi. We took a little cart ride once.
To get the provisions,
yeah, one time.
To get the provisions back from the grocery store, I had taken cabs, and yes,
yeah,
they were talking all about the culture and there's an interesting thing that goes on with firstborn children there that I don't know the full story for. So if somebody wants to research that, feel free. But yeah, no. So the few cabs we were in, at least that I was in, they do speak English, and we took a lot more cabs in Tahiti and Moorea than. We had a rental car, didn't we, Moorea? Yeah.
So I wasn't with you on the taxi, so I guess you communicated fine.
I probably spoke broken Spanish, which gets me around. So yeah.
I know a little bit of French, but not like that.
Yeah. Great question.
Nancy asks, what would be a ballpark price to rent a sailboat and a captain for a couple of weeks?
There we are. I did ask Dream Voyages for that. I'm sorry. Did you want to answer it? I did ask.
Yeah, I was just going to tell her what kind of bourbon I like, but
they told me that. about the time we went, for about the size of the boat and the number of people we had, it would run, but this is with a captain, but without provisions. Monohull would run about $9,000 a week. And, but divide that up by all the people and all, you know, what you would pay on a cruise ship. I think it's pretty good. And the cat that Liz loves and that I'm dying to try is, I think she said around 14,000. It's
Per week.
per week. Mm-hmm.
Did you find that 10 people on your boat, was that crowded, or do you?
Yeah, I mean, it's 5 different bedrooms. So no, I mean, I thought it was great because we had plenty of hands. Like if you needed help, somebody was awake, you know, and depending on the day, or some people would be out front. I mean, there's so many different gathering areas, even on a boat that size. It's just nearly, well, it's an over 60 footer. So it's plenty of room. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd love for Liz to talk about the difference between sleeping on a catamaran versus sleeping on a monohull.
So the largest difference between a monohull and a catamaran in general, specific to sleeping, is a catamaran, because it has the 2 pontoons, it stays very flat. It doesn't heel to one side or the other, so you're not going to get sent rolling out of bed. And that's just the big main difference between a catamaran and a monohull, regardless of whatever you're doing. If you're cooking in the galley, your plates aren't going to maybe slide off of the counter. The catamaran just doesn't heel so much unless it's really windy or really wavy. A heeling is just the number of degrees that you are going to go side to side based on wind or wave action. And the catamaran has the 2 pontoons, which tend to be the berths or bedrooms and bathrooms or heads. And that whole center area in a catamaran is, I guess I'd say, a little larger than a monohull, where you have your galley and your salon. Does that explain it?
So if it had 5 bedrooms and you had 11 people, where did the extra person sleep?
We had a couple people in bunks, and do we have a single person somewhere? I don't think we had anyone in the salon. So some people were 2 in a room and others 1.
That still only makes 10.
There was some really friendly folks. I don't know.
Musical beds, Karen. Musical beds.
That's why you invited Pat along, right? You figured she was so small she could share her bed?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's possible we got a stowaway along the way. I don't know, actually. I'm trying to remember that. But yeah, I remember we had 5 I think we had 5 cabins. This was 2014, right? So 6 years ago. So anything after 3 years, I pretty much forget. So it's a great question. That's a great question. I was going to pull up a picture of a cat we were on in January. Just it is night and day difference. But again, it's personal preference, especially for sailors. Sailors prefer typically to know when you're sailing on your catamaran, you can't tell if the wind is getting strong. And that's dangerous because you can't tell if the rigging and everything is getting stressed because the boat doesn't lean over. Whereas on a monohull, if you're getting too much wind, the boat tilts over and you know to let some of the sails out. It's just natural, like a fulcrum. So
Martha's a big sailor. Martha, what's your preference?
Monohull. I hate cats.
Yay.
They don't point. You can't push into the wind. They're boring. Yes, you want more space, but as a sailor, I'll never go on a cat again if I can avoid it.
Cats are slower too in general than a monohull.
Yeah, cats don't listen to them when you call them either. So
No, I have 2 of them here with me, and they never listen when I call.
Oh, speaking of which, Eileen, do you want to show your little treasure there?
He left. We have a new member in the family, an 11-week-old Shih Tzu.
Oh my gosh, 11 weeks.
11 weeks.
And you'll enjoy this. My husband named him Truffle. Why? Because he's brown, he's aromatic, And he's expensive.
There you go.
And it was hard to find.
Perfect.
Somebody told me the price of dogs since the pandemic hit has gone up 2.5 times.
Hi, Eb. Hi, Eb.
Hi, Pat. Enjoying this, learning. Yeah.
Wonderful to see you.
And I see Jeff and Mary Dunbar, but I don't see their pictures. But hi, guys. How are you?
Hi.
I'm jealous. You
What?
You like the
I'm
water?
jealous I haven't been on all these trips. Do you do many in the States?
Yeah, actually, Eileen, talk about that. He said, do we do many in the States?
Sure. In fact, one of them is in our book, Rome. Pat and I, a couple of years ago, went to Santa Fe for a week of hard interviewing and running around places. We talked to Indians and naturalists, and
That's a neat area.
it's really nice. Yeah, we had a wonderful, very inclusive kind of experience there. We've done the national parks, and they're fantastic. So, and Nantucket is one of my all-time favorite places. If you ever want to talk about Nantucket, I'm your gal.
Will you do anything with now that the coronavirus is here, you think? I mean, you have to wait a certain period of time before you consider the next trip?
The only place that I was on my schedule right now is a trip down to North Carolina to see my daughter because she's invited me down. But no, I'm not going anywhere for the near term. You know,
Yeah.
That's everybody's personal decision, but I'm of an age that I just do not feel like gambling with my health.
Yeah, we're at your age also.
So that's why we've been considering doing a trip exploring the national parks. We've all been to some, but I don't know if anyone's been to all of them. What do you think? Would you want where would you like to have a trip to Italy, a trip to the national parks, a trip to?
I love the national parks. I mean, you know,
Where do we go?
out west and the Boundary Water and the Everglades and that Everplace. I mean, the national parks are a gem.
They are. They are.
I haven't been to many, and it's sort of on my bucket list. If I ever get to everything on my bucket list.
Which one?
We're just starting, Marshall and I are really just starting out too, because we always said that when we got older, we would do America. So, you know, we've run around the world and now we're seeing our own country in some way. But for future programs, Pat and I have been dreaming about where to go. There's a plethora of riches, and we thought, well, maybe Venice. Africa is still in the book that we'd like to talk about. The national parks came up. There's the Amalfi Coast. There's Tuscany. You can see I love Italy. So actually, we'd like to get your opinions on something. If you want to email me at eileendcurtis@gmail.com. Send me your preferences, and Nantucket would be another place we could talk about. But
that is a neat place to go.
Yeah.
you know what? There's a book that I have that's put out by National Geographic, and it's called The 10 Best of Everything, and it names the best place for teas, the best place for mountains, the best islands in the world. And guess what number 1 was? Nantucket.
Nantucket, really? Oh God.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Pretty amazing. On what the criteria? I mean, there are so many beautiful islands in the world.
Yeah.
Well, I think the charm of it, the historic reality of Nantucket, and it's the farthest place east in the Americas, so it has some exotic touches, I guess. The clapboard houses are wonderful. The ocean and the marinas, and I don't know, it's just a wild and wonderful place.
Yeah.
What's the sea like out in Nantucket?
How about Nova Scotia and Newfoundland?
Oh yeah, we could definitely do that.
We've sailed that
We've
too.
sailed to Nova
We've
Scotia.
sailed that too, if anybody wants
And
to
it's
see.
really,
Sign me up for the next sailing trip.
Puffins.
All right.
we saw puffins, how people usually don't see them. We never saw them looking how you normally see in a picture.
We
But
have-
we went all the way
Yeah, we
to Nova Scotia to a Annapolis Royal, the sister city to Annapolis here.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, highly recommend that as an adventure.
Which
Um,
one?
Nova Scotia.
Oh, no, I haven't been to Nova Scotia. It's on my list.
Okay, David,
Pat has.
we can do that together. Liz, we can do Nova Scotia,
Prince Edward Island.
Edward Island, Ile de Madeleine.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sheila asks, have Elizabeth and Ryan ever sailed the Great Lakes?
No, we
Not
haven't-
yet.
haven't
So
been up there.
there's something called the Great Loop, which the boat we're on right now is a Great Loop boat, as well as kind of go to the Caribbean. But we haven't. My company is based in Milwaukee, and I texted a picture of as I was landing in Milwaukee. I texted a picture looking straight down to the coast, and the water is very much like Tahiti. If you look at the water straight down in Milwaukee, it is absolutely gorgeous. And I said, babe, I actually didn't go to Milwaukee. I'm landing in the Bahamas right now. And she's like, why didn't you bring me? You said you were going where it's cold.
The water is like alpine lakes. Yeah.
But yeah, it's gorgeous. She's been up
Oh,
to the Upper Peninsula. Sorry, go
You
ahead.
want- I Lake Superior. It's gorgeous. I've sailed it and it's just
It sounds
spectacular.
awesome.
I think the St. Lawrence
Everywhere.
Seaway would be interesting.
Where did you put out?
Out of, there's a national seashore. It's got Madeline Island. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's,
Okay.
yeah, it's an hour and a half outside of Duluth. You go around the edge of the lake and you're there.
Sounds really cool. Yeah, I've got a lot of folks that live up or have houses in the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah.
Like on the north side of
I have a son-in-law from Superior,
UP. Yep.
which I've never been to, but you've probably seen it, Martha.
I have.
That sounds awesome.
And I think I saw in the question list, somebody asked if we've been to, done sailing in BVI. Did someone ask that?
In where?
British
The
Virgin
BVI.
Islands.
Oh, British Virgin. They're beautiful. Oh, they're another sailing mecca.
Like Disney World for sailors.
They're very beautiful islands. I haven't sailed there. I think I took some, short boat trips. We were staying on the island at the time.
Yes.
Very lovely set of islands.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That would be a good, Dave and I chartered a boat there with the captain, but we didn't need to, I don't think. It was, I guess it depends on the wind, but it was great snorkeling.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Great places to stop for.
Lots of places in the Caribbean are great for snorkeling. There's a lot of calm waters down there. Doesn't mean you can't have currents and all that, and in season counts. But on the whole, whenever I've gone snorkeling or sailing, I've never had an issue. And I would have an issue. I would get seasick. So yeah, if the waters were too rough. So it's something I have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know. I can't tell if this is sharing. Let's see here.
Yes.
What do you all see right now?
The
A
boats.
bunch of sailboats.
Okay. Yeah, this is just basically one of our moments of weakness. This is when we didn't take a monohull.
The one time.
Oh, that's the cat?
Mhm.
The cat's here in the bottom right, and this is in January. It's the area called the swimming pool, and this is in the San Blas Islands in Panama, which is where the Kuna tribe basically reigns supreme, where the women are the actual heads of state and heads of family. It's kind of like the Nashis in the Yunnan province in China, but very interested in the anthropology of society as well. But yeah, this is on our way between Bonaire and Colombia, on our way to Panama, in the Panama Canal. There's a catamaran here that we were on. Elizabeth was describing life aboard on. It's the only time we've ever actually done passages on a cat. So, but it was really pretty. So,
Yes.
so a friend of ours needed help moving his boat. So we're always available.
So you're offered, right?
Always we have a standing offer. Exactly.
Yep.
That was a heck of a trip too. So always plenty to talk about. Great questions, by the way. I know lots of folks have been lots of places. It's cool hearing about other areas too. I know we've been to Nantucket as well, and there's lots of places we want to go. We still haven't been even further in Micronesia. There's Tonga is definitely on top on the list. Folks have heard of Tonga. Anything in Micronesia in general.
And if you're doing the Nantucket area, I think we would highly recommend doing Block Island,
Mhm.
Cutty Hunk, going out and doing the true islands there, as well as getting the feel of Nantucket being a whaling town. And as you all described, it's really beautiful.
It's Nantucket, Massachusetts.
Mhm.
It is.
That
Well,
may be-
this has been wonderful visiting with you all, and I see that we're approaching 8 o'clock. So I
8:00.
guess it's time for us to say adieu.
Yeah.
But I did want to give special thanks to Liz and Ryan for joining us tonight. This was so special. So many of us have always dreamed about seeing French Polynesia, and you brought it to us tonight. So bravo, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting us. We enjoyed this from start to finish, being able to share our pictures and stories.
Come back for the next month's program, which we will announce on our email. We'll keep you inside, but we're going to have another wonderful time. And I want to thank Andrea Savage of Unique Travel Events for her support of this program, and always the great Steve Gurney. Thank you very much, Steve, for
Steve.
hanging with us and helping us do this. And it was wonderful to see you all tonight. I miss you all. And we will see you next month. Pat, anything you'd like to add?
Save the last Friday of next month at some time to be decided. Looked like it was across the board. Anytime was.
30, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks. Love it.
Bye.
Bye,
All right,
Pat.
everyone.
Bye.
See you next time.
All right.
Yes.